When it comes to any form of media, whether it be movies, shows, or even books, a common mode of storytelling is where we follow the protagonist on a perilous journey to achieve some goal that is ever so daunting. This is the hero's journey. It's a narrative structure that is often used in narratology or comparative mythology. We all love a good tale where the protagonist ultimately achieves the goal, but the narrative can fall flat if there isn't some form of conflict. This is where a foil to the protagonist is needed, and that foil can be found in the antagonist. Antagonists, or the villains in the story, are there to challenge the protagonist in some form or manner. There's this quote that I think perfectly illustrates the complexity of the villain, and that is every villain is the hero of his or her own story. This quote is derived from The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler. At first glance, one may think that it means that the villain is heroic in some manner, but really I think that the quote is trying to convey the idea that no matter what side you are on, you'll think that you're doing the right thing to achieve your objective, no matter the cost, and you are the protagonist of your narrative. There's no requirement for trying to be a hero. It's just a belief that you are greater and a hero of your narrative. That's the truth of the matter. The greatest of stories have the most compelling of the characters. In most cases, it is the villains that carry the story in a way. Some examples can be mentioned, and we will go into greater detail about, are villains such as Hannibal Lecter, the Joker, Askeladd, Pain, Thanos, and Scar, just to name a few. Each of these aforementioned villains has certain archetypes or tropes fulfilled by their roles within their story. When you view people like Hannibal Lecter and the Joker, they have this presence with them. When they are on screen, the presence is what is so captivating about them. Whenever they are on screen, it is the presence that they have exhibited that people remember them and their roles. And for that, these two antagonists have gone down in history as the greatest on-screen performances in villains in movies, period. Hannibal Lecter, in his first appearance when meeting with Clarice Starling, exhibits a demeanor that is almost ethereal in a sense. As the moment he is on the screen, you're captivated by the very notion of who this person on the other side of the glass is. When portraying Hannibal Lecter, Anthony Hopkins takes a very sinister and yet calm approach to portraying the mannerisms and personality of Hannibal, and it is shown when Clarice meets Hannibal for the first time. You can tell that despite a piece of glass separating them, it's not Clarice who is in control, but Hannibal. Hannibal, despite being in prison, is the one who seems to be the freest. He gets inside the head of those he speaks to, and he does the same thing to Clarice. Instead of Clarice feeling safe and secure, she feels the opposite. We, as the audience, can tell she's unnerved and uncomfortable. Hannibal is the one character that exudes an aura, a presence that is oh so captivating. And this is an example of the archetype, the mastermind. Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter is the mastermind, as he is the one that can get into the minds of those he speaks to. he is always the one in control. No matter where he is, those he interacts with will forever be subject to his mind games. Another character that does this is the Joker in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. People like to joke that The Dark Knight is as much of a Joker film as there is a Batman film, as Heath Ledger's Joker is in the film for a resounding 25 minutes and 15 seconds. He has the second largest amount of screen time in the film, only being 10 minutes shy of the star himself, Christian Bale's Batman. Heath, when playing the Joker, would always be a show stealer or even a show stopper. There's an interview with acclaimed actor Michael Caine, who played Alfred in the Dark Knight trilogy, where he mentioned that when he met Heath Ledger for the first time, during the scene where the Joker crashes the party, Caine was supposed to say a few lines, but he was genuinely terrified of Ledger's performance, that he had forgotten his lines. The fact that such a highly acclaimed actor with a filmography that is as long and as stacked as Michael Caine's forgot his lines due to the performance of his peer, who did not have many titles under his name when it comes to their filmography, goes to show just how much aura and presence the Ledger Joker had. Sometimes in life, we watch characters that can be morally wrong and yet have so much going for them, solely because they are charismatic to such a degree that even though you know they are a horrible person and so morally bankrupt, you, after getting to know them, kind of want to root for them. This description can be applied to the character of Askeladd from Vinland Saga. We start off hating him for ending Thor's life in such a showcase of complete and utter disregard for honor and integrity. This is the catalyst for Thorfinn's journey. But for the series, we see Askeladd in all dimensions of his character. He is cunning, charismatic, prideful, and a skilled fighter when he wants to be. It is through learning about his character, seeing the types of interactions he has with others, and seeing just how the circumstances of his birth and upbringing had an effect on him as a character that we begin to sympathize with him. We understand why he is the way he is, and we sort of end up rooting for him during the penultimate episode of Season 1. Makoto Yukimura, the mangaka of Vinland Saga, managed to write such a compelling character that you start out hating, but by the end start loving as a character. And that is something not so many people can do. Askeladd is the embodiment of charisma. He is a character that, for me at least, will stick with me for the rest of time, as he is a character who has had such a great screen presence that even though he is no longer in the story, he leaves a huge impact on the characters that he interacted with. Even though he is absent in the physical form in the story, his lessons, his words, and his actions leave an impression that is huge, acting as a surrogate father for the main protagonist, almost as if to atone for ending the life of Thor's. Askeladd, by all accounts, is him. In media, there are certain characters that, from a philosophical perspective, seem to be right, but the way they execute their actions is morally wrong by all accounts. Two characters come to mind that fit this description: Pain from Naruto and Thanos from Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. These two characters have personal philosophies that shape the actions that they take, each trying to fix an issue within their worlds. Pain wants to end all conflict by inflicting pain onto others. As when he puts it, pain is the only way to teach. Pain is the only solution to peace. If you want to know pain, you need to understand pain. Nagato, aka the Six Paths of Pain, has the philosophy of inflicting pain onto others to have them understand that everyone else experiences the same type of pain. When losing something dear to them, he does this by ending lives and destroying them, and destroying the villages. Using the same method in his grand plan of unleashing the various-tailed beasts onto the homes of those around the shinobi world, as with a shared cause for pain, then perhaps people will begin to understand one another and strive for peace. The very notion to cause a way for peace is noble, but the execution is where it is morally wrong. No one deserves to suffer, and no one deserves to have their life as they know it end. Pain's philosophy is derived from utilitarianism, a theory created by the philosopher Jeremy Bentham. This philosophy or theory focuses on results as opposed to rules. Pain viewed this method of inflicting pain on others in such a drastic manner as ultimately being for the greater good. The lives that have been taken are but a small price to pay for the bigger picture, that being more people surviving as a result of an end to all pain and wars in the shinobi world. Now, when looking at Thanos, he believes that there is an imbalance in terms of the resources available in the universe compared to the amount of life that exists in the universe. The resources are simply not enough to sustain all life in the universe. And in Thanos' eyes, it would lead to war and suffering that is far too great. How does Thanos aim to solve this issue? His life's goal is to use the Infinity Stones to cull half of all life, randomly, so that no one is judged based on their merit or based on their life. It is simply random, and that is equal opportunity for all. Thanos views himself as a savior, the architect of a plan that involves a hard choice, a hard task that requires the strongest of wills. He is the one who has the strongest will to carry out a plan that is a hard choice to make. This philosophy of Thanos can be derived from, once again, utilitarianism. He acts in his mind for a noble cause and is willing to sacrifice lives for the greater good, and that is to bring balance to the universe by any means necessary. It's these characters that we, the audience, can see the logic and reasoning behind their actions, but due to the moral dilemma that is the execution of these actions, we oppose characters like Pain and Thanos. Lastly, one of the more common villain archetypes is that of the mad with power villains. One such example is the conniving Scar from The Lion King. As The Lion King was based on Shakespeare's play Hamlet, Scar takes the role of Claudius, the modest uncle who serves as the central antagonist of the story. These types of villains are motivated by attaining some form of power. In the case of The Lion King, Scar betrays his brother, Mufasa, and warps his nephew Simba's reality of what happened by placing the blame on him, to ensure that title and throne of the king of the Pride Lands was Scar's alone. This type of archetype for villains is a classic one that can be found in all sorts of stories. As the famous phrase goes, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. In the case of Scar, it was his thirst for power that brought him to his untimely demise, having been disposed of by those whom he had betrayed, the hyenas in his story. I would like to ask you, what villains speak to you? Which stories in whatever form of media had the most compelling villain for you? And if you had to put them under an archetype, which would it be? If you liked me talking about some villain archetypes and characters that fit these archetypes, which happen to be some of my favorites, please do like, comment, and subscribe to see more content from me. Until next time.